Don't worry if you are not showing a final result. What you are showing is a result of a process of learning. Because the artists always have this idea, no, I want to show the final piece, the good piece, the better one. And we say, no, just get relaxed. This is an exhibition of a process.
You're a passionate creative, and so are we. Join me, Bree Stockwell, and my podcast partner, Len Metcalf, as we navigate the ups and downs of living creative lives while teaching you how to do it too. Time to pull back the curtain on our creative affair.
Hello there. Welcome to A Creative Affair. I'm Len Metcalf, and my co-host, Bree Stockwell, is unable to join us today. But we do have a very special guest, and I'm very, very excited to talk to Pablo Giori, who co-founded and runs the Experimental Photography Festival, and something that sounds just absolutely so amazing and has lots of collaborative learning and collaborative creativity, and I just love making things with other people. So welcome, Pablo. How are you today?
I'm perfectly fine, Len. It's a great pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about experimentation, creativity, all the things that are going on nowadays in the world of photography. We need to find new ways of doing photography, and I think we are going to have an amazing conversation.
Oh, that's interesting. So why do we need to find new ways? That's an interesting comment that you've started with there. Why is it important to you that we keep finding new ways to do things?
Because I have the feeling that people is getting tired of watching always the same images. At least in our community, that is a long conversation about seeing so many images, artificial intelligence, Google images. I mean, tons of images about the same. There are some theories also about this in the 90s, but now it gets crazy with social networks because we are learning on social networks how to do the images. And we're just repeating all these images, not just because the cameras are done, all of them by the same companies. That means that there is a monopoly of the way of creating images, but we have also learned to do the same images on the same place. That means that we use the same tools and we want to have the same images because they look nice on social networks. And that's why we think experimental photography is a way to find the images of the future, because we're just getting bored of watching the same all the time.
We're making more images per second than we made in the first century or something. It's the onslaught of them is incredible. And social media, to me, really creates a mediocrity. The stuff that rises to the top isn't the most exciting. It's work that I've seen before. It looks like everyone else's. It's so formularized that we can sit down and describe what the photos look like without even seeing them.
I think the democratization of photography has been a long process of 150 years from Kodak, 1888. I mean, this is the result of that. And this has always been this critique that cheaper cameras made more images, people to get into photography that are not professionals, or that the level of the images are not. But now, I mean, there has always been this critique, but now the thing is really crazy. And I'm really happy that everyone can make images. That's perfectly fine. The thing is that in some point, there are so many images that then you get bored. And there are some of these people say, no, I want something different. I want to create something with my hands. Not just using an industrial camera or my iPhone or whatever. I want to create my own camera. I want to try this new way of doing images. I want to see my reality in a different way from my iPhone. When you make this click because you are bored and you want something new, something has changed. That's the moment when these new ideas are going to get in your mind. And if you keep looking on this creative way through that, you can find something amazing. We love those that make these decisions of going one step forward.
Mm. It's, you know, is it a driver for uniqueness, do you think? I came from a very strong background of wanting to be unique. And today I've given that away. And I've sort of I've let that idea loose and to leave me, and tend to concentrate on work that makes me smile, that gives me that inner beautiful, oh, isn't that just so gorgeous? And stop worrying about what everyone else thinks. And when I was a much younger man, I wanted to be seen as this unique artist that was producing incredible work. Does that tie in with that as well, do you think?
Yes, I think it's related with that. If you want to go more through high art, so to say, that you want to be unique, you want to be different from others. If you see this from another point of view, more amateur, that's a lot of our people, the people from our community, they are really coming from a more an amateur world. They are not just wanting to go through museums, all that kind of things. They want to create art to share with others. On that level, so to say, I think people want to do something that really express what they want. Not just, I mean, not being unique, not being the only in the world doing something, but they really want to be representative on what they are doing. And the only way to do that is to take in all the decisions on the process of making a photography. If you just take a shoot with this one, the industry that has created this camera has made all the decisions for you. The only thing that you can decide is where to shoot, point and shoot. The options are pretty limited to express yourself with these industrial cameras. In experimental photography, we talk about a photo that is a total image. That means that you can make all the decisions on the process of making. And for example, the first decision is if you want to do that with a camera or without a camera. That's a great decision because what you want to express, you can do camera-less photography. Chemigrams, there are tons of techniques, but I mean, this is kind of the first decision. And then you can decide which camera you want to use. If you want to create your own camera, with a beer can, you can create a camera, a pinhole camera, for example. This is a creative decision. And that's the thing. When you decide to make with this industrial one or a pinhole camera, you have done a decision and you have to feel comfortable with the result of that. But when we can recover for our creative process all these aspects of making one image, I think people get really in love again with the images because this is so easy. People really want to get engaged with a medium-term, long-term process of learning where they have the feeling that they can really intervene on the result. For me, it's not so much about being unique, but putting yourself in something.
Mm. I love how some of those cameras that you just talked about and those camera-less processes actually create quite particular looking and unique images. One of my students made a beer can camera, loaded it with a pinhole and left it in locations for periods of time, like for weeks, to create their work. And they had a particular look and feel because of him, because of his decisions about the size of the can, the pinhole, where he put them, what film he used, what developer. They had this incredibly beautiful, consistent look that tied them together as a series. And it was a absolutely fabulous thing to do. And so often the final look is tied to the process, isn't it?
Yes, that's for sure. And also the process is linked to the decision that you have made. And that's where I think we really need to recover all those processes. It's not because digital is bad or it's not because there are so many digital images. It's because we want to see these processes working and we want to work with them and we want to put our body on that creative process. We want to take the decisions again. In some point, at least part of our community of experimental photographers, they want to make decisions again. That's the thing. The industry, for making it easier, for making it cheaper, has made so much decisions. For example, 99% of the film that we use in analog photography is 35 millimeters. 95%. That means that 95% of the people is making exactly the same framing for all of their images. You can do it horizontal and vertical. That's the only decision that you can make. But if you can work with a large format, if you can create your own film, you can also work, for example, with a medium format camera that are not so expensive. For $50, $60, you have one. You can work with X-ray negative. For example, the same for doing when you make something wrong in your arms or something. You can do X-ray photography, for example. It's cheap, it's nice, and it's different. But you have made this decision of using an X-ray film and not the same 35 mils that everyone is doing. And then you can develop the X-ray, and it's not the same than developing a 35 millimeters that you bring in this kind of 1 hour shop. At least from our community, that is what we are looking for, something slightly different from traditional photography.
Yeah. I also find that the 35 millimeter frame rather boring and it's because of that saturation of 2:3 as an aspect ratio. And I really love pushing against that. One of my favorites is shooting square, but I also love panoramas and other interesting shapes. One of the ones that keeps surfacing for me is shooting in a circle. And I haven't actually spent much time doing that, but that just sits in the back of my head as a bit of a project one day to work at. You keep mentioning over and over my community, the experimental community. You keep using this word community, and I'm really fascinated that you're tying that in so directly into photography and into the creative arts. What is this community that you talk about?
It's a pretty big community. It's an online community. We get together every year at the Experimental Photo Festival in July in Barcelona. When we started this dream with Laura, it was 7 years ago, and we started realizing that there were so many people doing, in our case, we were working with double exposure because we started exchanging films, 35 mil films for doing double exposure. This was a project called Film Swap Worldwide. We exchanged films with people from all over the world. We did one in Barcelona, and then we sent it by postal mail. And the people receive the film, they put it again on their cameras, and they shoot it again without knowing what was inside of that film. We create a double exposure in camera by film swapping. That's kind of the technique. And we get together through Instagram and social networks and different web pages with more than 120 people from all over the world. And that was the moment when we realized social network has this ability of creating these communities. If it was working a little bit, it was much better in the past than how it's working now. But in 2017, 2018, you were just using a tag, and then you have tons of people talking to you about your images, how you created, how can we exchange, how can we share. And at that moment, we started this movement of experimental photography because we started with this 120. Then we organized the first festival, and we had 100, almost 200 people here in Barcelona. And then we met them kind of physically, because in the past it used to be more an online thing. And then when we saw them here in Barcelona, it was crazy, because we really saw this community that was not just online, but that it was also a face-to-face thing. And then we get friends, and then the festival was getting bigger and bigger, and then COVID started, and we had to create this online festival that we have also to put in all the content that we create here in Barcelona worldwide. If you want to join on our webpage, you can find the way. And that's what the community is. I mean, we started also a school for experimental photography. It's called Agora. With that, we have 40,000 people there making comments, wanted to join the things that we are doing. Also, for example, yesterday we shared an artist in our social networks. It's an artist that is coming to the festival, and she just received 20 new followers. Because our community wants to know all these artists coming to the festival. They want to see more of what they are doing. This is, for me, a community, people that is interested in sharing and commenting and creating on the way that we are creating. All those who come to Barcelona, they are going to do a workshop with an artist directly face to face, at least 4 hours. All the tickets for the festival are related with doing workshops, because we do believe that doing a workshop with someone is going to change your life for sure, and it's the best excuse to start sharing with others. We have all the 300, 400 people of the festival in a Telegram chat to share what we are doing live during the 5 days of the festival. That's the strongest way to create community, because we know that we have 5 days. Some of those people come alone. They have 5 days to make new friends. That's what we are working hard, because we want them to be integrated in the community, not just in an online form, but also in a face-to-face. If they make the decision to come to Barcelona, it's our commitment that they make new friends for start these kind of creative conversations in the future. That for us is the most important, and having this kind of Telegram chats, these classes. We have also free webinars for everyone during the year. All those activities that we are doing are fueling and creating this creative community.
It's a community that has a sharing of knowledge and support for each other's processes and creative ideas. I'm imagining that, hey, I've discovered this. This is how I did it. Why don't you have a go? There's something magic when you start creating in a community. I'm sure you've discovered that in this process, because it is such a big thing. Perhaps you could tell us about what it's like being in the community of learners and of people teaching and supportive in that way.
We always comment, and I remember when on the first festival, we always make surveys at the end of each of the festivals, and people give us feedback with the ideas, what they have enjoyed, what we can change for the future of the festival. And we always remember it was a girl that she said, I was so sad and so tired of working in my darkroom alone, having the feeling that I was the only one in the world doing these kind of crazy things. And now I go back home with the feeling that there are other people that can help me, that can support me when I don't have the energy, or giving me ideas when I don't have the ideas that I need to create. Working in a community is that. I have always think this as the feeling that you are with other people's creating. Even if you're in a small town in the middle of nowhere, you are not working alone. That's the thing, because you always have someone with your phone, in the Telegram chat, in the WhatsApp, or in Instagram, that you can just send them a message, and you know that the feedback is going to be nice. You know that you are with other people that are open to share what they have been working with. This is not a competition. That was also what I told you at the beginning, that this is not just about fine art photography or high class people trying to fight for going to a museum. It's really a strong community of people when you have so many different interests. Obviously, there are people that want to live from this, but there are a lot of other people that they are more kind of amateur photographers. And I'm saying amateur photographers in the good sense, because they put all their energy in creating something, but without any goal of making money or being famous. And that's an amazing kind of people, because they are really open to teach whatever they have learned, working for hours and days and months with one crazy idea in their head. If they have found something new, they want to share it. That's the difference between this kind of more contemporary art photographers, that they are not going to tell you how they work, because this is part of the mystery of my artwork. In our community, there are tons of people that they just want to share what they have learned, or what they have created, or what they have found, on so many hours of research, because in the end, experimental photography is a lot. It's really linked with doing research in your darkroom, in your home, with your computer, learning things, mixing things that you know from mathematics or from biology, mixing your daily life work or interest with photography. And from this mix, new things are born. And that's what we do at the festival. Also, we have the workshops, but we also have the conference. We have 18 conferences this year where people just stand there, show what they have been working with, sharing what they have created. And that's amazing because it's a community that they just come here to share what they have learned without any other goal. And that's what I love the most of this community, because they are really eager to teach and learn, to know more about experimental photography. And that's great.
And when they're there in person, that must be a very, very different feeling and energy and creative output than what can be expected in an internet or a online virtual group. How does it work in person for you?
The idea of the face-to-face festival is working as a summer camp. This is kind of the format. We started at the beginning with more a congress or seminar kind of format, and we have moved this through a more summer camp thing. We have a collaboration with the University of Barcelona. We have a community place where everyone can be. It's a university rooms. You go to sleep on the same place that you have 70, 80 other creative minds. Everyone get breakfast together because it's included on the price. Then everyone go together on the metro to the festival. Then you go to the conferences or to the workshops, and you have seen all those that were on that conference, and you have a great excuse to start conversation, you know. Then we have dinner together, and then you're in a table and you have 4 chairs, and you use one, you met someone, there are 2, and then 2 other people get there and they're talking about something, and then you get on their conversation and you share, and then you have excuse why you can, where you can, what you are doing, what are the techniques that you are working, can you show me your work? And then all of these things are starting conversations. That's for me the most important. The festival in the end is we have 100 activities that are 100 excuses for starting conversations with other people. That's how this idea of summer camp works. You know, it's not just one day, it's not 2 days, you're not in a rush. You have 5 days, 100 excuses for starting conversations. For sure, you are going to have a lot of inspiring ideas and a lot of contacts in the end to work with other people on those inspiring ideas.
Inspiration, hey, that's a really important part of it. And I want to steer us into talking about creativity. What does that word actually inspire or spark in the experimental world?
I think it's an amazing word. It's pretty important for our community because experimental photography is also pretty linked with creative photography. They are connected, but more in a general way, I think at least in our community, people is looking all the time for inspiration. They are creative people. They want to look for new things. They are tired of the past. And they are always looking for these creative strategies, you know, finding new inspiration, finding context for creating new things, trying to see the images of the future, trying to feel themselves comfortable also, because it's pretty important for being creative. Feel comfortable with yourself, with what you are doing, but also at the same time looking for something new. I'm always linking this creativity with the context. You need to find a nice context for creating. That means to work in a community, but also you need to have this necessity of looking for new things, for going outside of your routine. Obviously, you need to work in a routine because we are animals of of routines. But you need to find these moments, these places for looking for new things. And that's when this creative process starts. When you put new questions for the things that you are looking for, we link this a lot with science. In the end, for experimental photography, there are a lot of people that link this process with science. Trial and error. You have a question, you try and you try and you try and you look for new answers and you look for new ideas till you find the answer to these questions. How can I do this image different? How can I do this image that is black and white? How can I do it in color? How can I do it, make it faster? How can I make it bigger? How can I express this feeling that I have? What are the different techniques that I have? I want to learn them, blah, blah, blah. All this, for me, is part of this creative process.
You mentioned strategies, that there's all sorts of different strategies and processes that you could use. Would you like to mention some of the ones that you think are the most important for you or for others that you've witnessed that encourage this experimentation, this creative approach, this trial and error that you're talking about, this incredible quest for, I don't know if it's knowledge, but for doing something different? And of course, the word is experimental, isn't it?
Yes, I have the feeling that there are people that they just get used to a style, for example, and they just keep doing the images on the same way for their life. I mean, there are professional photographers, they have created a career and they want to keep doing their images on the same way. That's perfect, that's amazing. But in our community, we have a lot of people that you see them every year at the festival with new projects of different techniques, of different things. As I said, there are more than 144 techniques, and you see them looking for new things and new things and new things, controlling the technique, understanding the process, and then going for something new. That are the people that for me are the most inspirational. At least in my case, I have the feeling that I don't have so many new ideas. I think there are really amazing 5, 10 ideas in your whole life. But if you keep working with this creative process, as I said, if you keep looking for, even in a second, even if your mind, your brain is in kind of a second level working on it, but you are always thinking new ways, then you find new solutions. But that's why I say you need to be inspired. You need to be in a context with other people that are looking for new things. But you need to have these questions running. And then at some point you get bored with the things that you are doing and you want something new. And that's a context when you can really make new questions, find new solutions, make research, share with others. As you said, not to know everything, but to find different ways of expressing yourself, of expressing what you are feeling at that moment. And that's great, because if you work hard, you are going to find new ways of expressing yourself. That's just in the end what the artist wants.
Mm. So one of them there is to work with other people who are creatives to push you and to learn that. And then another one is to have that sort of experimental mindset. That sort of sums up the two that you've said there. I really believe that people love this notion of being creative, and they want to be more creative. So many of us label ourselves that we're not creative, and some even feel that they're imposters when they try to be creative. And there's this search for these little things that they can grab onto to work. And so I want more of them from you.
Good. I'm also doing a mentorship program that is full year program of mentoring, and I'm pretty lucky of being with these artists for the full year, working with them. And I have learned from them that there are kind of two different processes or two different moments. I'm always thinking as you are opening and you're bringing new things. And when we talk about bringing new things in experimental photography, we're not just talking about photography, because you can really mix with architecture, you can mix it with food, you can mix it with cinema, with whatever you can inspire you. And at least from the experimental point of view, if you mix things from different worlds, that better. Even from the history of dinosaurs, can inspire you to break the way that the normal thinking goes, because you really need to think outside of the box, literally. How you think outside of the box, receiving outside of the box information, getting inspired by other things. And that's why I always talk about science. That's really important. Get into biology, get into math, get into astrology. I mean, all of these things are linked with the science and the techniques of photography, but they are not direct link, but they are part of the science of photography. If you get into the science of the world, obviously you are going to get inspired with these small nanoparticles, or how the solar system works, or what happened with the dinosaurs. All those things can inspire you. That's the moment, as I said, when you are opening to get inspired by so many different things. For example, in the past, we have had experimental cooking classes at the festival, experimental architecture, experimental dancing, experimental poetry, for example, because as you said also, experimentation is to experiment your body. It's really important to be connected with your feelings, connected with your body, for jump outside of the box. That's why all these moments of inspirations are great. For example, we have a lot of our photographers that they go to painting classes. They are really, really bad at painting, but they want to connect with their visual character from another point of view, or they want to connect with their hands on a different way. All this information get you inspired, and when you are inspired, then there is a new process. I talk about 4 months of each. Then you get closer and closer and closer, because you took this from here and from there, and you get the idea. This is really important. Get the idea of the project, and then you start working with the technique, learning more about the technique, and then you get specialized in something, because you have bring ideas from everywhere, and then you get something new that can help you to explain what you want, what you are feeling at that moment, the images that you like. But this comes from this outside of the box inspiration. And then you get closer, you get specialized, you control your techniques, you go as deep as possible, really specialize on this technique, on this idea, of this feeling, for create something, a couple of images, a series, a book, an exhibition. And then when you get bored of yourself, then you open it again for new inspiration. And I always have the feelings, and I always invite my students also to know exactly where of this process they are and what they need, because I have the feeling that we get lost when we are in an opening process, but we want to create something now, and the creation of something is the result. It's not the beginning, and I say, no, just get relaxed. Just go to the cinema, get a class of astrophysics. Now is your moment to get inspired. Don't push yourself to create now. Take 2-3 months to get inspired. Then write notes on everything. Take pictures of everything. And then with all those notes, we are going to think on the project. But now is not the moment. Now is your moment to get inspired. And then we are going to work with all that. Sometimes we get frustrated because we're not able to know in which part of the creative process we are. And that is pretty important. And when when I'm saying to my students, don't focus on create, just relax, their mind just blow, because they get rid of this obligation of creating all the time. And they realize that it's also an investment to get inspired. It's an investment of time, because then you are going to have the result of your process. But you need to understand this as a process, and you need to put your energy on what you need in each of the moments, not to get frustrated.
It's a very different way to how I teach, because I love the process of learning through doing. And I run a year-long mentoring course as well, and we get straight in with the doing and reflecting. So that action learning cycle that you were talking about, doing, um, making something, reflecting on it, looking at what it is, and then asking questions about where it's going is something that I roll off straight away, and I pursue that relentlessly with them as they're adding in their interests and their loves, and getting them to pursue that. And I think I come from a strongly artistic background, and I don't tend to use science so much to explain what I'm doing or working with, but use the more artistic, intuitive sides as they come in, and really explore that and ask people to dig deep as to who are they, what do they love, what's important to them, and throwing that into the mix with your work to see where it takes you, and to follow an intuitive approach rather than a scientific approach. But it's interesting because no matter how we do it, when we put in huge amounts of effort, magic comes out at the other end, and I find that is quite fascinating. There's actually quite interesting research on that. It doesn't matter which counselling philosophy that you work from, or which educational philosophy you work from, you still get good results. And part of it is maybe not so much a placebo effect, but making it work for you and putting the effort in actually creates incredibly beautiful results. I'm thinking of a book that I'm actually reading at the moment, and it's called The Master and His Emissary, and it's by Ian McGilchrist, and he talks about how we've allowed the type of scientific thinking to overrule our lives, and it's actually caused huge glitches and gulfs in our lives because we've undervalued the passionate feeling and emotional visual part of ourselves. And he talks about it from a philosophical view, is that as we become in society so focused on the scientific side that we actually lose so much of something that was so strongly part of us for such a very long period of our development through many, many years of evolution.
I mean, as a society, I can agree with him, but in a daily basis, when you are talking with artists, they don't know nothing about food, nothing about architecture, nothing about science. Okay, if you learn more about these kind of aspects, for sure you are going to get inspired. That's kind of my idea. Obviously, you need to know yourself. You need to know the word, the artwork, music, cinema. They are really important. Theater, for photography, all of these worlds are really amazing. But feel free to mix with other things.
Yeah, I call myself an artist, and I really believe that I am, and I'm trained as an artist. And yet, my highest marks in high school were physics and chemistry and mathematics. So to say that because I'm an artist, I'm ignorant of other parts of science, that's pushing it is quite too far. So what I'm having issue with is the generalization that all artists aren't interested in how the world works. And I think that they are, and they're very, very interested in pushing that and experimenting with it. And we probably agree that it's this throwing things in and exploring them is so important, and that we shouldn't actually classify them and say, well, these ones aren't going to be as valuable as these ones, because each person is going to respond to things that are deeply personal and meaningful for them. So the one that has an interest in architecture is going to respond beautifully to architecture. And yet the one that has a passionate love for music is going to find the connection with music and the metaphors and the connections with composition and harmonies and those sort of things will come in really, really beautifully from music. The one that's into literature that, studies philosophy or something, how they bring those in is going to be important for them. So this exploration of this open bucket of let's bring in as much as possible, there has to be a passionate self-interest in those things for them to work, doesn't it? That you need to have that glimmer and that excitement. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, and it just doesn't work for everybody, does it?
Sure, I have the feeling that in general, the photographers just see photography, and what we want from experimental photography and what we see in our community is that people bringing things from the outside are those that, as you said, can really mix thing with other thing, get inspired by others, and that's it. There are others that work with history. There are others that work with cars. I don't know, but get inspired with other things. That's the thing. That's my recommendation in general for being creative: is go outside of your box. If you're not used to do exercise, let's do exercise. That is going to change your body. It's going to change your mind. It's going to change your metabolism. This is kind of the ideas to go outside of the box. We're talking about creativity. We're talking about photography, but maybe my recommendation can be that one. If you're not doing exercise, I need you to do exercise 3 months. You are going to learn something different, totally outside of your box. And this is going to change your photography, because creativity starts from bringing things from the outside. That's kind of my general last idea about it.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I've personally had incredible experiences of creating with other people. Groupthink can be incredibly stifling and, closing you down. And it also can be, on the other hand, incredibly opening and immersive and powerful and incredibly inspiring. I think that's very much to do with the group that comes together and also with the leadership that drives the group. And as a professional educator, this is my whole career, how I would lead a group shapes the group. And I really believe that I'm the decisive element in the classroom as to where things go. And if it doesn't lift up and it becomes oppressive, that's my fault for dragging it there or allowing it to go there, or not putting in the things that actually shape it to be this incredibly beautiful, powerful, creative experience. And I'm wondering how you get people running workshops and doing these incredible events that you're talking about to create these amazing creative spaces that are full of positivity and sharing and community.
It's pretty interesting because normally photographers are not so used to share their knowledge. I mean, they are professionals as yourself, professional teachers, that they are used to share their work. But there are a lot of artists that they have not had the opportunity to explain to others the way that they work. And that's why we make mandatory for all our artists to make workshops during the festival. You can see the exhibitions, but you also need to explain how you have worked on this in a workshop. And we are really happy with this format of having a class, having 4 hours, having a maximum of 8 students with a volunteer. All these 8, 9, 10 people get together for 4 hours with the excuse of learning a technique, of learning a process to arrive to a result together. But as you said, that's the moment when this artist has to learn how to explain their own work and also the technique that he or she is using. At least from my point of view, that process is magic. Because as I said, it's an excuse. From one side, it's an excuse to share something, but also push the boundaries of the artist to teach, to make the exercise of teaching, of explaining themselves, of showing what they have work with. And that I think is mind changing for the artist and also for the participants, because being hand to hand during 4 or 8 hours with an artist that is an international specialist in a technique or in a concept or in something that you are also more or less interested in, that's why you choose that workshop, and not the rest of them, that is crazy. I mean, that is really going to change your life, and that's what we want on the festival. When you go to see an exhibition, maybe you can get inspired, but it's not a proactive situation. You're just seeing an exhibition. Maybe you go with someone and then you comment. I mean, going to general exhibitions in general. You go to a museum, you pay your ticket or not, and then you get inspired. But then you are 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, blah, blah, blah. But when you do a workshop with an artist directly 4 hours, and also you have traveled to Barcelona, it's really hot. There is a lot of your energy and your interest put in doing this. And that's what we love the most. We are not so fan of bringing duos for doing workshops. We prefer to bring in separate individuals, but we do like the duos when they are result of the festival, because what we see is that sometimes you have a, so to say, teacher and a student, that the next year they present a new proposal for a workshop together. You know, we are really happy with those kind of situations. Or it was a participants 1 year learning one technique, and then this guy, this girl was working so hard for a year with the technique, and then the next year he or she present a proposal for the festival teaching what he or she has learned during the year. That's, at least from my personal point of view as the curator of the festival, that's the most enriching situation, because this person has come to Barcelona, has had the opportunity to learn, has created a meaningful connection with the artist, has learned the technique, and then he put himself or herself in the situation of teaching again. You know, making all this is something that changed the life of the photographer, changed the life of this person, putting themselves in this situation. And from our side, putting all our energy to create this context, this friendly context, when you can take this step and say, okay, now I think I can also teach. That is crazy. We have had a couple of these experiences of people going from one side of the other, and that's really amazing. And that means that we are creating a space when you can really feel comfortable. And then something else happens on the other side that's also amazing. When you have an artist that, for example, has been coming to the festival for 2 years for teaching something really special, and then you ask, okay, are you coming next summer? And she said, no, I'm not interested in this technique anymore. I'm going to come as a participant. I'm going to come to learn what others has to teach me. And then if I have a new idea for next summer, I'm going to send you a proposal. That's amazing. I mean, an artist that has been an artist for 2 years in the festival, but they have been teaching for 20 years saying that's so honest. And that's so amazing, you know, that they have the confidence of telling us, no, it's enough, you know. I don't see myself explaining this again. I'm not interested in this anymore. I have had 8, 12, 16, 24 students at the festival learning my technique. Now I want to go one step forward.
I allocate finances and time to study every single year, and I make it a pilgrimage. I pick my teacher, I pick new courses, and I go and work with people, and I do things outside my box. I do things totally outside my comfort zone. Yeah, I do lots of those things, and I'm an advocate that lifelong learning that follows you for the rest of your life is an incredibly beautiful thing, and it's an absolute gift as we age, that we can still keep learning and growing and becoming better. And, you know, the older we get, the less we realize we understand. And that's an incredibly beautiful thing to do. And there's a beautiful idea in education, and that is that if you really want to understand something, the best and the fastest way to do it is actually to teach it. And that this process of having to explain what you're doing or what something means or how it works is a way to inner understanding of that actual concept. And uh, I personally really encourage in my all my classes and workshops that there's peer-to-peer teaching is just part of our everyday practice, that we share, we show, we demonstrate, we talk about, and we explore as a community and as a learning community, not as, a bunch of photographers. I really hate being lumped in with the photographers, and that's why I really hang on to the word artist, because it's a bigger community and it's so experimental, and there's less rules, which I really love in there. Yeah, that growth is so beautiful.
Yes, since 2 years now, we are doing a residency, an international residency on experimentation here in Barcelona. It happens 10 days before the festival. And when we were doing brainstorming for the residency, we were looking for other formats, and we saw a lot of residencies that you go there and you do your own work. There are these kind of residencies that you get isolated from your context, and then you have a week or 2 weeks or a month or so for working in your work. And we were not happy with that format because it is kind of a really egocentric thing. You're just taking time, paying for taking time outside of your comfort zone for working with yourself. What we decided for our residency, as you said, is to create a horizontal community of learning. We have 10 days. Every day, people is teaching to the rest of the community what they know, one technique. That means that if you come to our residency in 9 days, you receive 9 workshops, and then you spend the last day to create an exhibition with the results of the workshops. It's not. It's an exhibition of processes. It's not an exhibition of results, obviously, because with one day you don't really have time to master a technique. But all these processes of trial and error are part of the process, and this is sometimes really hard for the director of the residency and myself to try to explain to the people of the residency. Don't worry if you are not showing a final result. What you are showing is a result of a process of learning, because the artists always have this idea, no, I want to show the final piece, the good piece, the better one. And we say, no, just get relaxed. This is an exhibition of a process. And this is also mind changing because they learn how to do exhibitions in a different way. They learn to make it more important of the process than the result. And they also put themselves in a community of learning. And that's an amazing way of going outside of the box, knowing yourself, knowing others, knowing your limits, knowing what you want to do. That's a great experience. If someone is interested in November, so we have always our open call for the festival in general. The artistic residency is amazing.
It does. It sounds wonderful. I've never applied for a residency. I'm too busy running around teaching, and it's something that I've thought that I would love to do. But I do run a retreat, and we get people together for a number of days, and we live together, and we create together, and we set up, interestingly, a large table, and we all sit around the outside. And we have periods where we're creating at the table and periods where we're creating in other parts of the house, but also outside making. And there's a lot of shared food. There's a lot of shared experience. And this incredibly beautiful and passionate energy starts to form. And slowly we cover the table with objects. And we make objects as an output, whether it's a print or a card or a book or a sculpture. We make things that are physical, and we keep adding them and experimenting and trying and, boxes and boxes of resources get thrown up, and people explore, and it's incredibly beautiful and satisfying. It's something that I've created, that space myself, but I love being in it. Like I get just as much value as being in it as I am leading it, and the satisfaction for having set it up and managing that for others. So that's a residency too. Depends on how we talk about the word. Fascinating.
Putting people together. That's the most important for getting inspired, for getting creative. Put people together and give them a couple of days to know each other better, to know their work. For sure, they are going to start collaborating.
Yeah. It's one of the things that photographers are terrible at, and artists are too, is going into their studio or into their workspace or their computer or their dark room. And we've talked about this already, but this trying to solve everything and create new, unique work themselves, I really believe that they're missing out on this incredibly powerful component of creativity, which is collaborative learning and sharing and inspiration. And it's magic. I really think it's magic, but we can also analyze the scientific way as to what it is. But this energy builds and more comes out. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in that situation. It equals something much bigger than all of the sum of its parts mixed in together to come out in a beautiful creative whirlpool of ideas. It's incredibly beautiful. One of the things for me is safety. And I don't mean, well, obviously there's physical safety, chemicals and environment and gloves and respirators, but I mean emotional safety, that a really beautiful group environment encourages and allows risk-taking, experimentation, failure, all of those things to come pouring out in a safe manner, that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. That's actually part of the process, is what happens if, when I do this, what could happen?
I think the context is so important, and that's why we are so happy with at the festival and the school, because we have the feeling that people feel really comfortable, feel safe to share with others without any borders, without any limitations, without being afraid of making mistakes. Even the professors sometimes they make mistakes, or even ourselves we make mistakes when we choose some materials, for example, that we have bought for some workshops, and the materials are not correct. And shit happens. I mean, all these things are part of the process. And it's important to know where are you working, how are you working, who are the other people working with you. We love those people saying, okay, no, don't worry. Try to find this and this and this, and then send me pictures, and I'm going to help you, and try that. I have done the same 20 years ago, but there is a solution. I have read in an article, or I have so that one talk with my friend Larry, I don't know, that he was doing this, and he's going to give you an advice. Those are the energies that we prefer to have at the festival, because we know that this energy is encouraging more energy.
Yes. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Well, when are you going to do one in Australia? Where we can create a local chapter?
We have had a couple of Australian. I have a lot of Australian students. I don't know why, but we also have had a couple of artists from Australia, and they are really nice, really relaxed. They are not in a rush normally. They are not as London or New York, Paris. They are more focused into being famous. People on the rest of the world, they are just trying to have fun, to enjoy, to make friends, to share with others. And that's what we want. We want to create opportunities for artists to express themselves and share. That's great. And if you are a professor, an instructor, a teacher, that's the most important thing that you can do. Inspire your students, get inspiration also from them, create context of horizontal learning, and that's great. We really believe in this kind of way of doing things.
Mm. Yes. And yeah, Australians do have that reputation, and I'm proud to be one for that reason. There's other things that I'm not so proud of my Australian brothers and sisters, but I agree with you that I often say that teaching is the most noblest profession, and that's not true, obviously, but it has this incredibly magical and beautiful thing that it does when you do teach and inspire people. The rewards from that are absolutely incredible, and magic happens when you become a teacher, and that you can bring so much joy to other people. And a lot of people in photography get into teaching because their portrait business isn't going so well, or their stock photography business has fallen out the window, or they don't sell enough fine art prints, and they start running workshops, and they haven't actually stopped to think about how to be a teacher and what they should be doing. And this is one of my beefs with so many that are doing that, sometimes in an unethical way, but also just in a selfish grabbing way to, come on, I can do that. You can come out with me. And it's that simple. Whereas being an educator, it's something that you finesse, study, think about, and practice that. The more you teach, the better you get at it, the more you study it and think about what you're doing. As you change your attitude from being the instructor through being a teacher to being the facilitator and the inspirer to being the mentor, you can get to these incredibly beautiful places with your students. And to see people blossom with incredible art is just magic. That's my whole life. You've actually led us through to my absolute passion, which is education. I could give up photography, but I couldn't give up teaching. And I've actually known this through trying, where I tried to give up education and tried to run a gallery, and I failed. And when I put the two together, I ended up in a magical place. And then when I expanded out to teaching a wider variety of arts and creativity, it even became better and better. So thank you for taking me there, Pablo. I appreciate that, and having the opportunity to share that with everyone.
Thank you for being so sincere. That's the thing. That's nice also that we take the time here for talking without any troubles and problems. We just focus on our conversation, and that bring us to crazy places. And that's good because you open your heart to explain what is important for you. And then in the end, I'm pretty sure that your audience also like that you talk about yourself, because they love the way that you do things and the way that you go through this conversation. And that's because you're a professor in a way. You want to learn more, and that's why you open yourself to this kind of conversations. There are a lot of people that they are not open to talk with anyone because they think that they have the truth. I always have the feeling that the professors and also some of the good journalists, they really want to learn things all the time. And I think there are amazing professions because if you are there, you can learn every day. And that's pretty important for being creative, for being inspired, for being experimental. That's why I love doing also the mentorship program because I learned a lot from my students. That's they pay and I learn.
I understand that totally. I learn so much from them and through teaching, and they're always showing me new stuff and expanding my mind. I think this is a really lovely place to finish up our conversation, both congratulating each other and showering each other in praise and in enjoying this process and this idea that teaching is a beautiful thing, and we speak from the heart to say that being lifelong learners and participating in educational events is incredibly powerful, and it's worth the travel and the expense and the investment to go in and be involved in, the experimental festival, in mentoring programs, in workshops, studying with people for lovely long periods of time. It's an incredibly valuable thing to be doing. And you and I both practice what we preach, getting in there and continuing that lifelong learning.
There are a lot of people that they think that they don't want to put themselves in the situation of learning. And as you said, you need to be always open for learning. Every year, at least, you need to do a couple of 2 or 3 courses. And it doesn't need to be about your theme or your profession, so to say. Just do something, even go to yoga classes or cooking classes. All those things are really going to make your brain to be open for new information. You are going to get more inspired. You are going to have more different inputs. You are going to meet people, different people, because in the end, we just get together with the same people all the time. If you go to do a different activity, you are going to find people from other contexts, and you are going to get inspired for all that people. We need to be learners, students, all our life. If not, in the end, you just get into these kind of routines that are not the best way of going outside of the box,
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Well, what a lovely conversation that we've had today. It's a pleasure to meet you and to discuss your festival with you and to discuss your educational philosophy and how that relates to creativity. It's been a wonderful journey.
I can say exactly the same, Len. It was a pleasure to meet you, to know deeply what you are doing, what are your interests, and what you are working for. Because in the end, this is also part of what you are giving to the world. These kind of amazing conversations. I have really feel comfortable here and being also open to share what we, myself, Laura, and the rest of our team, our community is doing.
And for our listeners at home, in the show notes, we'll have links so that you don't have to sit there and type out the website to get to the Experiential Photography Festival. Just click on the link below and follow us back to where you're listening to the podcast for those. So thank you very much, Pablo.
Thank you so much, Len, and also say hello to Bree for me. I had so much fun with you. Hope the next time she's also going to be here and we can talk again in the future. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. And Bree's fast asleep at the moment. The time zones between 3 different parts of the world are virtually impossible. And we miss her very much. It's time to say goodbye, folks, and thank you for listening.
Well, wasn't that fun? As we close another episode of A Creative Affair, would you click on your podcast player and leave us a 5-star review? And share with another passionate creative like yourself? Thanks. To find out more about our creative work and mentoring, visit Len at lenschool.com or me, Bree, at creativemindscoach.com.